Disclaimer. This program is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The following program is intended for mature audience only.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kathy Swain Jones.
Hi, I'm Dr. Denise Joseph Zollicoffer.
Hi, and I'm Sonia Williams Finney.
And this is
Menopause Diaries, real talk, real stories.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Menopause Diary Real Talk, Real Stories. Boy, we are so glad you're here today. This is a wonderful day to talk about menopause and to encourage other women around us by our stories. If this is your first time, I want to tell you a special welcome to you because you don't understand that this is going to be the part of your life and you'll be wanting to come back. And for those of you who have been here before, have listened to our episodes, thank you again for returning. And please just continue to spread the word because this is us. We're taking care of each other. And this is exactly what we want to be doing, is sharing our stories. Just so you can remember, hear my voice. I'm Denise Joseph Zollicoffer, and I'm joined today by Dr. Kathy Swain Jones and Sonia Finney. And we are just going to be talking to Free, who has chosen to share her story with us today. And we're really glad that you are willing to share your story. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm actually so excited to be here. It's so funny how this came about because I just happened to post about perimenopause and it kind of took off. And then I was reconnected with Sonia. So I'm really excited. I love the concept of the podcast. I think it is so important. And especially after International Women's Day yesterday, it just feels empowering to be on here today. So it seems like it's all working out for the best. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a great conversation and hopefully inspiring another woman who's going through it so that she's not suffering in silence and just assuming it's just her.
And this is exactly why we do podcasts. I mean, we say this over and over again. This is exactly why we want to connect with people like you who are brave enough, willing enough, are just wanting to share, to impact someone else's life. So I want you to start. Tell us your story. We'll jump in. This is just a conversation.
All right, fantastic. So again, my name is Free. My birthday, actually, I just turned 41 this past Wednesday on March 5th. So super excited about that.
Happy belated birthday.
I know. I forgot to say happy birthday as well.
And, the process of getting older is always nerve-wracking because when I was younger, the thought of being 35 was like, oh, I'm going to be in a nursing home. So, when you're in your 20s, the 30s sound like, what? You're like, brakes, 40s is around the corner. Pump the brakes. I'm not ready yet. But I started getting to a place where I was more accepting. I'm like, okay, I'm getting older. It's okay. I'm fabulous. I'm awesome. And it was like one day I woke up in a pool of sweat. What is going on? I jumped up like, what is happening? I couldn't remember a nightmare. I didn't remember. Everything was absolutely normal except for the fact that I woke up in a puddle of sweat.
Did that start in your 30s or in your 40s?
No, that started when I was 38. I still remember I was 38.
Wow.
And I was like, what is going on? And I was terrified, but I was also like, how you sit around and you're listening to your girlfriend and no one else says anything even similar. So you're like, I'm going to keep this to myself because obviously this was a me thing and not a everybody thing.
At that time, though, did you think had you heard about hot flashes in older women and thought maybe this was that, or you just thought?
No, I had always heard of menopause, and I had always heard that was something that would happen when you're older. I knew about hot flashes, and it was more so as a joke, like, I'm burning up, I'm having a hot flash, ha ha. Like, how people, if you're like really neat, they just assume you have OCD. It's not OCD. It's just you like your neat. Like, yay, this happens, but it was never anything at that moment that I thought, could this be
Something.
Perimenopause? Could it be menopause? Plus, I didn't want to put that in my head. I was only 38.
And that's a good point. You were so young.
Yeah, I'm way too young for any of this to be. So I just kind of put it out of my head. And I started making excuses. Maybe, dinner was a little too spicy. Maybe it was, something else. I tried really hard not to admit that there was something changing, and it wasn't consistent. So it wasn't all the time. So I would see, it's just a thing. It must be something that I'm doing or something I'm not doing that's causing it. But I started to feel so different because no one else was talking about anything. No one else was talking about their experiences, if they were having it. Like, we're all young moms at the time, and we're talking about our kids going to school. We're talking about, there's other things that we were relating to, issues with our husbands not putting their socks in the laundry basket, like just like that. Like, we're having conversations. No one else bringing this
after
up.
that one, how was it for you though? So was it then like once a month, or like when did you start getting more?
It started getting more intense as soon as I hit 39. So like at 38, it was sporadic. I couldn't even give you like a time frame, like once every 3 months. It was unpredictable. It was very sporadic. And then I would go months without one and totally forget that was even
So
something
you were
that was
thinking like,
happening.
just like how women talk about, oh girl, I had so many menstrual cramps, or my period is so heavy, and some have it and some don't. And so you felt like, well, if this was normal, somebody should have mentioned by now they've had this, and you heard nothing.
I heard nothing with friends. And like, we're a really diverse group of women of different ages. There's some women that are younger than me, some women that are exactly the same age, and some of us are older. And so no one was talking about it. So I just kind of kept it to myself because I didn't want to bring up something that was impolite. I also was really afraid of being diagnosed with something. So it was kind of like out of sight, out of mind. But at 39 into 40, so last year at 40, that was when I was like, you know what, there is no way to ignore this anymore. They increase in frequency, they increase in almost intensity. Like, there were moments where I would jump up in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm drenched in sweat. The house is freezing because I'm also hot all the time. So I have to keep my thermostat at like 65, 70. They're like, help, please, mom.
Let us live. Let us live.
And you're like, go get a sweatsuit, go get a hoodie.
You're cold, put on a sweatsuit, put on a hoodie, because they'll be outside in 95-degree weather with one on. Like, use it for what it's really for, is when you're cold. And I'm walking around in shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm still fanning myself. And I'm just like, it is hot. I was just like, it got to a place where I couldn't ignore it anymore. And so I started like dropping hints in conversations with friends. I'm like, anyone like always hot, even no matter how cold it is? Or it was one day, it was freezing outside, Florida freezing. It was like 60 degrees. I'm shivering, but it was like 60 degrees outside. Everyone's all bundled up. And I'm just like in a light little cardigan. And I'm like, wow, this feels great.
But by this time, did you have in the back of your mind, could this be menopause? Or were you still thinking maybe it's something horrible, but not menopause?
I started thinking it's something else, not menopause yet. Only because of my age. And everything that I looked up was like, you won't feel symptoms of menopause until you're, 50 or older. So I was just like, oh, I'm still good. I'm only 40. I got 10 years. I'm okay. And so I was like, it must be something else. So I went to the doctor and I was asking questions, etc. My doctor was just like, well, maybe it's you, maybe it's your anxiety, maybe it was everything other than. And I was just like, all right, I'll go outside in the sun. I'll get some sunshine, some vitamin D. I will change my diet. I will start working out, because the weight gain as well was an issue. And I was like, I can just
what were your periods doing?
And all of a sudden,
did they change at all? Were you having them still monthly?
They were monthly, but more intense. And that was when I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. They were monthly, they were regular, so that was great. But that was also different from when I was younger, which is weird because I always had irregular cycles. All of a sudden, it was like clockwork. So that for me was strange. That was different. And then they were more intense. The PMS symptoms, way more intense. The mood swings, like I could tell you what day of the month it was because I had to download one of those trackers. based off of my mood in the morning, because that's how intense the symptoms. It wasn't even necessarily that the bleeding was heavier itself. It was like the cramps.
And so now you're suffering in silence, even though you have talked to your friends, you've talked to your doctor. When you went to see the doctor, did you bring up the word menopause, perimenopause, or it was never part of the conversation?
No, because I was thinking to myself, if that's what it is, the doctor will tell me.
Denial, because as old as I am, I was 46 and I was a doctor, and it being menopause was the last thing, even though I knew deep down this is, but it was not a conversation I wanted to have. And I'd almost be happier if they told me I had some type of something else going on, but not that.
Not that. Because again,
it's
the connotation is like,
Mm-hmm.
as a woman, there's nothing left. Once you've hit that stage, there really isn't much more to look forward to, and it's all downhill, and you're just old, and that's that. And I wasn't ready for that. I was not ready for anything menopause related.
I see you walking out of the doctor's office saying, and he didn't say menopause, so I'm still in the game, and it's probably something else. So let me just keep looking.
I got onto Facebook, and I remember I put up some posts that was just like, woo, hold on to joy.
Praise to the Lord all of a sudden. All right, here we go. Were you able to have conversations with your husband at all?
You know what? I mentioned some things, but I was nervous. I didn't want to seem, or like, I didn't want him to start seeing me as old. I didn't want to be less attractive. I didn't want to be, less desirable, which is all the, negative connotations that are assigned to menopause. And so that's where most of the denial came from. I don't even.
Do you remember anybody in your family talking about it? Do you remember your mom, like at whatever point she, went through?
So my mom is Haitian. So I'm first generation American. My parents were Haitian. And so in our culture, you do not talk about things like that. And especially, as a proper woman, et cetera, you don't bring it up. You just kind of deal with it on your own. So I never heard my mother talk about it, never heard her make a complaint. Now, when I look back, when I see how my mother would complain about her weight gain, or complain about her hair thinning, or complain about, like, she would just have these, like, one moment she's happy, and then the other moment she's like in tears because no one is helping her around the house, and no one loves her, and then
so
she's
she
like
had
back
all
to
the
normal,
symptoms,
and you're just
but
like,
no
wait, what,
one
ma'am?
to talk
What
to,
is
no
going
one
on?
to help her navigate that.
Right. Yeah. And especially being an immigrant in the United States, she didn't have access to everything. There was a language barrier. And also she was in survival mode, providing for her family. So there was no time to complain. There was no time to sit and ponder and think. It was just
sort of
you deal with it and you
part
move on.
of transitioning from having your children, and then you still have those few good years, and then once it sets in, you become grandma with the the little keep your robe on, or the little duster, and you just kind of give up, and now you're the grandmother and not the woman.
And that's it. And that's the role as a woman. You give up that woman side of you, and then you become, the older, the matriarch of the family. And, everyone comes to you for advice, or the recipes, or the whatever, but you're not really considered.
That's why we looked at our mothers really not as
anymore.
Sexual beings. You know what I mean? I mean, we never, I don't think I've ever seen my mother like in, like the stuff we would wear now in our 60s. I mean, we look good. And I don't ever remember, them still keeping that sort of sex appeal. And that's what's so exciting about you guys coming up under us, is that just having the education on how I can do this and be still that, and I'm telling you, as like, we're all, 20 years older than you, and we feel better than we did in our face, just from the knowledge on how to maintain ourselves. And we didn't have that knowledge. And that's why this podcast is so important, that that we know not only looking good, we're healthier by knowing how to manage our menopause.
Correct. And it's so important, because once I put a name on it, perimenopause, I stopped being in denial. I put a name to it, that this is perimenopause. I am headed towards pause, and I accepted that. And it was like, and what are you going to do about it? And that was the attitude that I took. What are you going to do about it? Are you just going to sit here and let it happen to you? Or are you going to sit here and like continue to grow and better yourself, improve on yourself? Or are you just going to accept that it's time to come home and sit in a moo and rock in the rocking chair and, just do the stereotypical things that people claim are happening? And I will say, one, to hear you guys say that you feel better now than you did at my age is like so motivating because
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to look back and be like, I feel better now than I did in my 30s.
What did you choose
Yeah.
to do at this point?
I'm
Given
not
it a
ready.
name, which
Yeah.
is very, very
And that
important for you, perimenopause. What have you chosen to do since making that declaration?
But before that, when you left the doctor's office, and this will transition into Denise's question, when you left the doctor's office and you said, okay, it's not menopause, at what point did you then say, no, regardless of what the doctor says, this is it? So what made you give it a name? And then what did you do after that?
there was a day, and I still remember, and it reminded me of my mother. And it was a day where my emotions were just out of whack. It was like up and down. Everything is wonderful to, oh, woe is me, to everything is wonderful, woe is me. And then I put on a dress that I really enjoyed. And you know how you have those certain outfits that you wear that just make you feel good. And so you put them on and you're like, I want to go out with the girls, or even if my husband had time, just someone's taking me out. It's a good time tonight. When I put on the dress, I really did not like what I saw. And that was when it was like, all right, so are we going to sit back and deny and just accept, like in denial, just accept this? Or are you going to do something different? So I just decided that I was going to do something different. I wasn't sure what at the time, but I told myself it was going to be one focus at a time. So the first thing I started with was just with self-love and acceptance. It had to come, anything I did for myself had to come from a place of self-love. I'm doing it out of love for myself. I'm not doing it out of fear of getting older. I'm not doing it out of like, I hate what I see. I'm not doing it I'm doing it from a place of really love. So I still remember I told myself the first thing I wanted to do was in practicing self-care and making self-care an absolute part of my routine every week, and having time, taking time to just love on myself and learning how to do new things for myself was very empowering. And it felt so good because I was learning how to do new things and I was taking time for me. That was something I've never done before. I have 3 children. I have a husband, a dog. We've had all kinds of pets through the years. All my time and focus has been on everyone else. I'm also a teacher. So I have 3 children of my own, but hundreds of kids, as I always say. And they all really do think I'm like their second mom. So they like everything, they'll come to me, and I'm quick to put everyone else first, putting my foot down and making that demand on myself that I was going to start putting myself first. So it's really important to discover what you enjoy. So for me, the things that brought me joy. So on Sunday mornings, my new thing was going to see the sunrise every morning over at the beach. The beach is my happy place. If I'm upset, I'm going to the beach because it makes me so happy. So going to see the sunrise, having a cup of coffee, and just sitting in silence for a little bit and just having that time in the morning for me. Luckily, I had the time to do it because it was in the summer, so I didn't feel the need to rush, but I still do this, or on the weekend on Sundays. Sundays are like my day. A sunrise, then coffee is like a treat for me. I love coffee. I love tea. So on Sundays, I always take time to have a hot cup of coffee because usually during the week it's iced coffee because I'm running around. So, just changing it up. I learned how to give myself a manicure at home because going to the nail salon, I know for other people it's very relaxing for them. It is not for me. So for someone else, maybe a trip to the nail salon is self-care. It was not for me. Reading, I love to read. I love books, and I have not had the time, or at the time I didn't have the time or hadn't made the time to read for enjoyment. And I was just taking time to read for enjoyment. And then I also invested quite a bit on body care products. I became obsessed with making sure that my skin felt soft and supple. Like it's like a hobby for me. now, and it's just like a part of my routine. I love having my skin glow and just these little things that for someone else might just have already been a typical, but for me it wasn't.
For you, going to the beach is your happy place, or reading a book. For someone else, it could be something else. It's consciously making the effort and
Yes.
saying, this is for me. And it does help your psyche so much.
It does. And one of my biggest things that I also did was that I reminded myself that I'm a really great friend. I decided to tap back into my friendships with my girlfriend. I felt like that was an area where I forgot about girlhood and womanhood and how much we need each other. And so taking time for my girlfriends with my girlfriends, being able to tell my family that, look, mom is going to be spending some time with her girlfriends right now, and that's okay because mom is just free right now. I'm not mommy, I'm not babe, I'm just free.
I'm so happy to hear you say that you started making time for yourself. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that until just a few years ago, but it's so important, and I'm so happy to hear you say that. And I can attest to the sunrises because that's something I just implemented into my daily regimen in the last month or so.
Yes.
It has done wonders for me. So I try to do it at least 3-4 times a week, and it's amazing. But as you're going through this process, I think that you've hit the nail on the head. It's so important to make that time and find that time for yourself as you're rediscovering who you are and going through the process. So it sounds like you're doing a great job. So I want to ask you though, so as you started to identify, with the perimenopause and put a name on what it was that you were going through. So did you at that time go back and talk to your friends? Because I know you were starting to feel isolated.
Yeah.
And it can feel lonely when you're going through that process and you feel like there's no one else that you can talk to about, or you're going through this process alone. So did you go back to your girlfriends, and what was their reaction?
So yes, I absolutely did go back to my girlfriends because once I had a name on it, I was like, there's no way I'm the only one. And I started looking at the numbers, like the stats and information, and I'm like, there's no way it's just me. So I would just kind of bring it up. We're hanging out, girls' night, games night, and then I would bring it up like, you guys, like, I still remember the first time it was like a game night thing, and then I just kind of blurted it out. No one else is going through perimenopause, it's just me. Everybody else in here is dealing with this, and it's not just me. And I remember the reaction at first was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you just said that. Why would you even, what are you talking about? And it was like very like, and I just looked at everyone like I couldn't tell if everyone was joking. So I was just like, oh, I realized, oh no, they're serious. No one wants to talk about this. Okay. All right, we're done. We're done. And then you touch the stove and you burn yourself. Hey. And I learned this is a naughty thing we're not bringing this up. But then I would just be like, anyone else have night sweats? I wish night sweats caused weight loss. So comedy is like my thing. I joke about things that are really serious because I don't know how to be an adult yet. So no one wanted the label, but all of a sudden when I brought up the symptoms, and then it's like, oh my gosh, me too. I find myself just getting hot or cold, like all of a sudden. I'm either never warm enough or I'm never, it's just all of this is happening. And then, someone else is talking about their mood swings that they're having. Someone else brings up the fact that they and their husbands are not as intimate as they used to be. And they didn't know why, because they still love their husband just as much as they ever have, but things are just changing. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's not just me going through it.
Yeah.
It's not just me. Okay,
Yeah.
so you guys don't like the name. You don't like the name, and I get it. Right. I get it because once again, we're all like in very late 30s, early 40s.
Menopause is simply managed correctly is just, well, I'm not having a period anymore, but now I can have all of this. I can have wonderful relations, with my husband without having to worry about a baby. And it's the menopause that was the hush hush. When we didn't do anything about it is what we're rejecting. And now as we begin to teach women all of the vibrancy and all of, like you said before, all of the things we learned or know by 40, you know even more, once you become menopausal. And it's a really empowering stage. And I think that's how we need to approach it. And hopefully younger women will start seeing it as that.
And also something that I learned is that with perimenopause, it can be around for quite a while. It's not like, I think there was a thing with talking about perimenopause that people were just like assuming that menopause was right around the corner. Of course, menopause is the big scary word or the big scary stage. And I was like, well, no, it could last for quite a while. And it doesn't mean that. And it's also, to me, it's kind of like training wheels. It's allowing me to start making adjustments and changes so that when menopause does come, it's not this scary monster. It's something that I've been preparing for, that I've been preparing mentally, physically, spiritually for.
So were you communicating with him about this at this time?
Yeah, I started having communications with him and just talking about the different things that I was experiencing personally, and just the space that I needed in order to kind of like confront the changes that I'm going through, and I needed him to be supportive and understanding that, having to do different things in order to feel romantic or to feel like that's okay. It's not a personal rejection on you. It's just I'm changing. I'm a different person. And while some things used to work in my 20s, now, as a 41-year-old, romance looks a little bit different now. And I'm okay with that, and having a partner who is supportive and is understanding and is patient and doesn't like make you feel bad for that. And I only say that because I have a girlfriend of mine who talks about her experiences with her partner. It's not quite the same.
So just how you managed your mental health and accepting it all and your self-love and self-care, there are things that also, it's just that you're kind of still a baby into this because you started really early. Right. But there are things that we hope through this podcast that we can get women to understand. And just let anybody listening and you free to understand that there are things you can do to reverse where it's not an acceptance of not having a sex drive. Right. Your sex drive can be even more or just whatever it was, addressing the right things. And that's where the communication, and it may not always be in the doctor's office. That's why this podcast is essential, because the doctors won't tell you some of the things that women who've been in the field for a long time to come out and address, and the things that we learn from each other. So one of the messages we want to pass is that sex doesn't have to be over. It actually can be better once you learn all of the things that would be right for you to re-stimulate your sex drive.
Yes, of course. I think that is another thing that we as women, when we're younger, we also don't really talk about.
And this is why so many relationships, so the fact that you and your husband can talk about it, and the fact that we want to instill in you, there's things to do about it. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So this is not, you don't have to give that up. And these are the things that we need to know so that we can search out the answers and make that difference in your life. But before, it just wasn't talked about.
Absolutely. Right. And I think one of the things with acceptance that sometimes people confuse is that acceptance doesn't mean that you have to stay there. And it's like, when I say acceptance, I mean like, all right, I'm acknowledging that this is what is happening. I'm also acknowledging I don't like how I'm feeling. I don't like, how things are going. So I'm going to do whatever it takes in order to help myself get to a place where I'm happy.
I want each individual person, whatever they're lacking, there are solutions and options for that. Right. And no matter where you start, there are options for that. No longer are the days that we have to live with deficiencies or the chronic of something, and especially when it comes to menopause. It's just learning, and I say that as a hormone expert, that you're not going to get, your doctor's office may not say that, because again, menopause, this is still an underrepresented community on the options. And for Black and brown women, a lot of times it's never talked about, especially in the doctor's office. But I would say is that what I want to do, my goal is to have, you understand that there are right now for you today, there are options that you can do. And we'll do more and more shows about and break little things down like, okay, so you did the self-acceptance. So what do I do for this? What can everybody, if that's their problem, go get and pick up, and all of those things that we'll talk about as as we get deeper into the podcast.
Absolutely. And I love it. I actually can't wait. I know I'm on the show right now, but I can't wait to come back and listen to the other episodes, learn from you all, learn from the other guests and stories. And one of the things I'm going to touch base on, which I didn't before, but this has helped so much as far as building discipline for myself. And that comes down to, because of the weight gain that I've been experiencing, is intermittent fasting. At first I started intermittent fasting, it was just simply to help me lose some weight. And I was very that was it. There was no deeper meaning to it. I just wanted to lose some weight. But learning this discipline through intermittent fasting at this age, where I know for a fact there's no way I could have done this in my 20s. I have no idea. I don't know how to explain to folks that sometimes finding one thing that you have to practice such a level of discipline with, it can totally, once again, alter your brain chemistry in the way that you start to look at things, you start to experience things, and you learn that with discipline, if I can conquer this portion, I can conquer the other portions that, you know what I mean? I can use discipline to improve other areas of my life. And I love the fact that at 41, I'm still learning new things.
Currently
I'm still
working on now.
growing. I'm still I tell my husband all the time, I'm I'm so glad I gave myself permission to be a student.
Has it hot girl summer?
Right now,
Looking like that. Very good.
Are you going in that? I am in a place now where I am giving myself permission to have the hot girl summer, to be on the scene and be seen and be okay with that. I have been I was raised by a mother who attention was a negative thing. You don't want attention. Don't draw attention to yourself. Very much the butterfly in the corner, the introvert. Don't rock the boat. I'm rocking the boat this summer. I am going to be living my best 41-year-old life. Beyonce this summer in July. I'm just ready to just kind of live out loud.
I agree.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's an awesome feeling. You guys agree?
Yes.
I know you do. She's all that Anabag chips, and she is. Again, just enjoying.
That you have. I can't speak enough about. And you hear people say with age comes wisdom, but it really does. I mean, there's so much more insight and wisdom now. And you can still do all those things and feel free. I'm at this age, I can do what I want to do when I want to, say what I want to. But that freedom that comes with it, it's beautiful. Yeah. And I'm just happy to hear you because I wish that I had known what you know at 41. Oh my gosh, I was nowhere even close to being where you are. So I want to commend you work that you've done. I mean, because you're an amazing place. Yeah.
All because of the women that have come before, you all who have been doing it. When I think you guys are living, I'm yes, that is one. I'm especially when I'm seeing Black and brown women living out loud, living their best lives, going for everything that they want unapologetically, not cowering down, but shining as bright as you want to. It is so inspiring for me. And it's crazy because it kind of makes sense that this is happening a little earlier for me than others, because I also started menstruating earlier than and so something on my anyway, okay. And it just it kind of tracks that I'm hitting this milestone a little bit earlier than my friends, because everything happened a little bit earlier from the start. But it's exciting because now the conversations with my friends in person are different. They still feel a way about me.
That's how this came about. Sonia and I were sharing one day, and it was okay, let's break the silence, basically. So I think you coming out here, you're talking about your whole journey of acceptance and self-care, and now you're sharing. You're breaking the silence. You're leaving a footprint for the next person to walk into.
Yeah, I really hope that women just get to a place that we're comfortable owning all the different cycles that we go through, and owning the fact that neither of them means the end. I mean, of course, unless you're 6 feet under, then maybe but until then. here, and it's okay to live out loud, and it's okay to take that time for yourself. I've noticed my children are happier when their mother is happier. My husband is happier when his wife is happier. My students are happier when their teacher is happier. And so I really do feel like taking care of myself and looking out for myself is looking out for everyone else.
We went through, and what our mothers went through is there was no conversation
Just
about
gave up.
what to do next. And they literally gave up. Yeah, very. You've got kids, you've got all of that. And had you not made the choice to not accept that and learn more, it's easy to get overwhelmed and say, well, I don't need this because I'm trying to survive.
And I think that's probably where she was. My heart kind of breaks for my mom, just thinking like if she had known, if she had someone to offer her the support, the patience, the care, the understanding that she needed, you know, how she would have continued on with something that made her happy, her joy. And I hate that she had to give that up.
Even if they listen to your podcast and they say, there are things that I can do.
Right.
Most 37-year-olds would feel just like you and carry the denial and not have anybody to talk about. And you were bold enough to start getting it out there, even though your friends didn't have answers and you found answers. And so, you know, she's a martyr. We're going to put her down as, you know, she changed the face of history for women in what she instilled in you, because your story is powerful. What you've done so far is powerful, and hopefully we'll be able to start giving back some of the tools for you to say, okay, well, I did this. Now here's where I am, you know? And so I'm just so in awe of your story and what you've done, and so proud of you of what you've done. And, you know, just like I offer anybody, you can certainly reach out to me. I do a lot of holistic menopause care. I do, and just to as a place to kind of get some answers.
Ladies, I've had such the best time. I just felt like I was talking to my girlfriends over brunch, which is my favorite meal of the day.
Yes.
We would love to have you back and hear your updates.
Absolutely
we would love
awesome.
That.
Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to share my story. And then, you know, hopefully I can share some updates as I'm going through my hot girl summer.
Menopause is like having training wheels. And when you think about putting on training wheels, once you take the training, when you feel like, okay, I've got the rhythm, and you take the training wheels off, every once in a while you fall. The bike tips over. And then you have to kind of right the bike and get back on. And so keep on the training wheels for now. And then, you know that there'll be a day when you take the wheels off and you'll tip over. And remember, you know, that's why we're here. This is why we're doing it. And I encourage you to listen to, you know, some of our previous episodes when we actually talk about things like, you know, treatment. We didn't get to do a lot of that with you. But, you know, it's out there. We're talking about it. So don't feel like we're just, you know, talking about the emotional part of it. We actually have some solutions that we will have on our other programs.
Awesome.
But thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
This is
Menopause Diaries, real talk, real stories.
Thanks for listening. Let's thrive together through every
Hot flash,
mood swing and sleepless night. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Menopause Diaries, Real Talk, Real Stories. If you have questions or want to share your story or would like to be a guest, visit us on Instagram at Menopause Diaries Podcast. Let us start a conversation and navigate this journey together.